Hello, everyone. I'm Linda, the Manhattan Garden Club, and I just presented a presentation about gardening, which is my passion. It's kind of a terrible time right now in the world with the pandemic, but it is a great time to be a gardener. It's a creative as well as physical outlet, and it gives a lot of joy to me, I know, and also I hope to other people and people that I share my garden with. So I started gardening with my mom a million years ago. Now I have two of my three sons also garden, so it's been a really fun family experience. My first gardens had no real plan, and that's probably like a lot of you when you start out. I spent a lot of time just moving plants, losing plants, and learning what I liked and didn't like. Now I have more of an idea when I do a garden what I want to do. So when you're planting your garden, these are some things I want you to think about. We are in Zone 5 of the United States. So when you plant, make sure your plants are hardy for Zone 5. And my goal is to plant for 4-season interest, because a good part of our time in Chicago is it's cold. We don't have flowers showing, but we still have interest in our gardens with our trees and shrubs and pine trees and pods of our seed pods and such. So to begin with, when you want to design a garden, I find it really helpful to use a hose to design the shape of your garden. You can lay out your hose, you can change it, you can see what shapes you like or don't like. And when you find one you do like, you can use a spray can of paint and mark around the hose, and then you've got a good shape. Then to prepare the soil, you can dig out, if it's grass, you can dig out the grass, which I've done, and that is a lot of work. But an easier way to do it, if you have the time, is to lay out newspaper along the edges, along the whole garden shape, big or small. And then water it with some, spray it with water to keep it down so it doesn't fly away from you. And then add garden soil, topsoil, compost, peat moss, whatever you like, and cover that over the newspaper, and then just leave it. The weeds and the grass will die because of the newspaper covering it, and the soil and the newspaper will just compost into your garden. If you do this in the fall, it's a great way to be prepared for the next spring. But if you want to do it now, you can do it now, and you'll be surprised how fast that you'll be able to dig in that garden. When you're ready to plant, think about your design. What design do you like? Formal, cottage garden? Do you like native plants? Are you trying to attract insects, hummingbirds, monarchs, other butterflies? I like to attract the butterflies and insects and birds. That's kind of my passion. So if you do, I would research your favorite plants in the library. There's no better place than the library or the internet for that. Or join a garden club, or talk to your friends, talk to people that like to garden. They'll give you a lot of good ideas about what they do, what plants they like. I would plant, take a garden trip. When you're planting, I would plant for impact. Instead of planting a lot of one kind of plants, like one plant here, another kind here, another kind here, plant a grouping of plants and do it in odd numbers. That's more pleasing for the eye. So for example, plant 3 daylilies together or 5 daylilies together, or if you have more space, plant big sweeps of them. Also, you of course have more than one kind of plant, but when you do, try to plant in groups. When I first started, I was always buying what my friends would call a Dr. Seuss plant. I'd always be interested in kind of the brightest, oddest looking plant and stick that in my garden, and even though I enjoyed it, it wasn't that pleasing for the eye. So I think when you plant in groupings, you'll really enjoy your garden more. different perennials have different bloom times, and that's the goal in my garden, is to have different, the plantings bloom from beginning of spring to into the fall, and then even in the winter to have some interest for the winter. So, like I say, for the fall, ornamental grasses and seed pods that are left on your plants look very interesting. Bushes like dogwood that have red bark are really nice. And of course, any kind of pine or evergreen plant looks pretty in the winter. And they have interesting bark, but we do have a lot of time looking at the winter. So try to make it enjoyable for yourself. And try to use all your senses when you're gardening. Think about what you'll, not only what will you see, but what will you smell? What will you hear? The grass, ornamental grasses moving, the plants moving, having the birds come and hearing the tweets, or having the baby birds in the spring is so much fun, and watching the hummingbirds. Staples in my garden are hostas, daylilies, phlox, salvia, hydrangea, ornamental grasses. A lot of my plants and flowers just reseed themselves and come back, and every year plant themselves somewhere new, and I always enjoy that. And I'll try to show you that in my garden. I especially like daylilies for our area because there's such a huge variety. Not only the bloom colors, the bloom time, the height of the plants, they can be so different, and you can really plant a progression of blooms and colors that it's really fun. And hostas are the same way. They come in such a huge variety, and they're so hardy. And the fun of having, I think, daylilies and hostas are they're easy to divide. They're fun to share with other gardeners. Other gardeners will share with you, which is fun. I especially love blue flowers also. I'm always looking for blue flower perennials. They're rarer than a lot of the colors. So spring bulbs start my season. I like daffodils especially because they're so hardy, and allium and hyacinths. I love tulips, but they're not as hardy in our area. Sometimes it's more like having an annual. They may come up 1 or 2 years and then they're gone. So also Camassia, which is a beautiful plant that Lewis and Clark, they ate when they went out west. It was a native plant. They ate the bulbs. It's a beautiful blue color. You might look that up. Fall flowers, I like mums, asters, ligularia, turtlehead, obedient plant. I like to plant in groups, like plant a group of fall plants together so you get more of an impact. I found that the Manhattan Library has a great source of gardening magazines and books. And if you have a computer, that's great. If you don't, the library has one. Right now they're not opened up, but hopefully soon. And I think you can do a lot of things online if you have a computer. But there's so many ideas and information you can get by just looking at other people's gardens and seeing, what do I like? What don't I like? What would I like to maybe use their ideas? Sharing your garden with friends is probably my favorite thing to do, because there's so many new ideas. We share plants, and we spend a lot of time just sitting in the garden. I used to go to out here Green Glen a lot for plants. Now they're not open to the public, they're wholesale. But I recommend Sunrise Greenhouse in Grant Park. They have a huge variety of flowers. Possibility Place Nursery in Monique has beautiful trees and bushes and flowers that are native to our area. If you would like to go on a trip, Hornbakers in Princeton, Illinois, although they're not open, they do, I think, one customer at a time now if you call them, but you can order plants, hostas and daylilies from them, and they have a huge variety, and I've done that. I have ordered plants from a place called Graceful Gardens. They're in New York. I recommend them. They send out kind of small plants, but very healthy, and it's a great site to order with friends, then split the shipping and the plants. I go to Lowe's, Home Depot, and Myers a lot. I think they have beautiful plants. Be careful when you're being given plants by family or friends, so sometimes you can be given a plant that is so invasive that it'll take you years to get rid of and you might not like. So before you just plant anything someone gives you, I would check it out. There's a lot of garden walks in our Chicago area. Also, the Garden Conservancy, I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a place you can look online. It allows you to see spectacular gardens in all over the United States, but it also has gardens in the Chicago area. And it's really fun to go on those. Personally, I don't use poisons or weed killers in my garden because I'm trying to attract wildlife, and it's just against my philosophy, I guess. I dig up my weeds by hand, and I try to crowd them out with my plantings. I use compost and fertilizer, and to add to my garden. I'm told I have a green thumb. But really, I think what I have is a love of plants and nature and a desire to learn more. So I think anyone who wants to garden can have a green thumb. And I recommend it for just a very enjoyable way to spend all seasons. So I thank you, and my dinosaur, Darwinia, who's a Parasaurolophilus. She thanks you for listening to us today. It's her first time being filmed. And now I'd like to show you a little bit of my garden. So if you could step out with me.